Hi everyone, my name is Brady Butler, and I'm here with my good buddy Ben Vestrom, and we're both members of the Western Oklahoma Christians for Liberty, and we'd like to share some news with you about what's going on in Oklahoma with a piece of anti-abortion legislation that will be introduced this year in the spring session of the Oklahoma Senate. It's an Oklahoma Senate bill, and that's coming down the pike any day now. But before we go to that, I was wondering, Ben, could you tell us just a little bit about the history of the Oklahoma abolition of abortion movement and what it is? And
yeah, sure. So it grew quite organically. A group of students at OU, led by Russell Hunter, and he was studying William Wilberforce, doing a thesis on him, and kind of saw the correlation that was happening between the abolition of slavery and what needed to be done with abolishing abortion. And so it just kind of it grew from there, and with Senator Silk from southeastern Oklahoma introduced the first abolition bill in 2016, and then in 2018 Dan Fisher ran for governor as an abolitionist to abolish abortion, and then leading up to running abolition bills in the Senate. They've failed every time, but here this year with SB 13 was the most recent one, and
And it actually went to the Senate floor for a vote, right?
It did, yes, and it was actually forced to vote in the Senate on it, and it was not to actually pass it. It was just to let it be heard and to be debated on, and it was overwhelming. Only 4 senators voted to allow it to be heard.
Was that a pro-choice majority Senate, or what was that?
That was a vastly pro-life majority Senate.
Why would you say they opposed that legislation?
Well, there's a number of things, various reasons that they give, but an abolition bill, it has 5 components to it, and each one is very essential, and some of those components will make pro-life, senators, they kind of squirm on some of these points. And
would you mind going through those with us?
Sure, yeah. So the first one is outlawing abortion from conception. And so that's really a non-debatable scientific fact. Life begins at conception. There was a study that was done back in a survey of biologists, and in over 86 countries, over 1,000 different academic institutions, and with 5,577 biologists, and 96% of them agreed life begins at conception. So
when was that study done?
In 2018. Yeah.
So 5,500 of them, and 96% said that
that's right.
Life does indeed begin at conception.
Right.
So from the scientific perspective, it's undebatable, that life does begin at conception.
Yes.
What about? Obviously, science is important, but what's the most important thing?
Well, the most important thing is what God says about that, and when life begins. And it's kind of an interesting point on that in Luke chapter 2, verse 12. This is when Jesus was born, and it says, "And ye shall, and there shall be a sign unto you: ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger." And that word babe there is brephos in the Greek. And so if we go back to Luke 1:41, it says, "And it came to pass that when Elizabeth heard the salutation of Mary, the babe leapt in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Ghost." And this was when Mary and Elizabeth were both expecting. And that word babe is brephos. So
essentially, biblically speaking, the same word that is used for child in the womb is used for child outside the womb.
That's right. Yeah.
So really, there should be equal protection biblically for the child in the womb as the child outside the womb.
Yeah, and the same is laid out in the Old Testament with
And so, what would the next component of an abolition bill?
Well, so the next one is no exceptions, and so that would include, there's no exception for rape or incest, and so that's, there's a good, powerful illustration on that. It is right here, and the question is, which one of these babies was conceived in rape? And the answer is, we don't know which one, but it doesn't matter. They're both image bearers of God, and they're both precious babies. Neither one of them deserves to die. And a baby conceived in rape should not have to pay for the sins of its father.
Essentially, the father committed a heinous crime, and he deserves to be punished according to the full extent of the law. But the child is completely innocent, and the child did not commit a crime and does not deserve to be punished, especially with the death sentence. Yeah. However, the father does deserve to be punished. The other exception that a lot of times people will worry about is life of the mother. And life of the mother is kind of a non-issue, because if you have a genuine life of the mother case, say a tubal pregnancy or an ectopic pregnancy, that would not be something that's handled in an abortion facility. That would be something that would be handled in an emergency room. If mom does have an ectopic pregnancy and that's not discovered early by a doctor, she might later on be rushed to an emergency room, with bleeding or severe pain. And so that would be a case when you wouldn't call an abortionist to perform an abortion. You would call an ambulance and you'd go to the hospital. And in that case, this abolition bill that Warren Hamilton will be submitting is going to have it'll have an immunity for doctors whose intent is to save life. If you have a genuine case where a mother's life is in jeopardy, it's actually a situation where it's medical triage. You have two patients, the mother and the child, and if it's a tragedy, it is. We might all know friends and family who've had situations similar to this, and it's not something that we take lightly. It's just it's not an abortion, and so there doesn't need to be an exception for abortions in this case, because it's not an abortion. It is a medical emergency that should be handled by a doctor. And actually, you would say that abortion facilities can't.
They're actually not allowed to even handle those cases. So they would go straight to a hospital anyways, and so there's just no need for that.
So let's say that we're going to ban abortions from conception. What would the penalty be for somebody who did participate in a...
Right. So that comes to the third point, which is criminalization, and you have to have that. If you're granting equal protection under the law, if this baby is is granted personhood, well then it deserves equal protection under the law. Otherwise, you have it's not truly equal protection.
Essentially, this bill would give the same rights to the unborn child as to any child outside.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if someone sought to kill a toddler or an adult, any other person, they would be charged with homicide, and that would be the same case with someone who attempted an abortion. They would be. Or did perform an abortion, they would be treated as a criminal and be charged with homicide.
Right, with due process of the law,
Equal protection.
Yeah.
So, number 4, what we got?
So that is repeal all statutes implying legalized abortion. And that's a hot topic for a lot of people because, especially with pro-life lobbying groups and everything, they feel like these are hard-fought victories, the way they see it. But the problem is you have a problem of contradiction. You have on one hand you can't have a law like SB 13 or an abolition bill that criminalizes abortion, and have a pro-life law that says when, where, and how you can have an abortion.
Essentially, you can't say that abortion is okay and can be regulated, and at the same time say abortion is illegal and you can't participate in it. You can only say one or the other.
That's right.
And therefore, any law, and there's a lot of them on the Oklahoma books right now that imply that abortion is okay.
That's right.
And so those would have to go away in order to actually ban abortion.
Yes.
And
yes.
so that's what Mr. Hamilton's bill would do. It would repeal all laws implying legalized abortion and effectually ban abortion in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Simple case. You can't have two contradictory things.
So that brings us to my favorite point in the 5 components of an abolition bill. It's the one that everybody talks about. It's Roe versus Wade.
Yes.
What does a Senate bill in Oklahoma have to do, and how does it interact with the 1973 decision, Roe versus Wade, that
Yes.
is going to be in opposition to this bill?
Well, it ignores it, and so that's the big one. But we would essentially do, and we have a historical precedent for this, with the Dred Scott case, 1857. We had numerous states that just openly defied that ruling. That was a ruling that said that essentially black people were property and didn't have rights, so we had at least 5 states that just openly defied that. Actually, including Abraham Lincoln. That case had not been overturned when he became president, and he started issuing documents for black people, and so we look back in history, and those are heroes, and they were, and so that's essentially the historical precedent that we're following after. Oklahoma has a equal opportunity to be heroes.
Now, those are 150-year-old decisions. What about recent days? Is there anything that would be a recent precedent of a state defying the Supreme Court?
Yeah, there is, and it's from a 2005 decision, and I think you've maybe done a little research on that.
Yeah, well, it's one of my favorite topics in this conversation. And in 2005, the Supreme Court ruled in a case called Gonzalez versus Reich that marijuana was a federally recognized controlled substance and was therefore illegal in all 50 states. And that's also a federal statute. It's not just a Supreme Court decision.
Right.
But just here recently in Oklahoma, we have, for the good of our citizens, citizens who suffer from seizures or other medical trouble, we have actually legalized marijuana in Oklahoma, and that flies in the face of the federal government, the Supreme Court decision, and also a statute by the federal government. And so this abolition bill of abortion would not be unprecedented or unconstitutional. It's actually the role of the state to defy a rogue court that assumes rights that it doesn't have, assumes power that it doesn't have.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and Thomas Jefferson talked quite a bit about that. And one quote from him is, "Every state has a natural right to nullify." And he was talking about a judiciary that was getting out of control, and that the state had the right to step in, and even the Supreme Court to ignore an unconstitutional ruling, and that's exactly what Roe is.
So essentially, we'll just recap those. The 5 points of this legislation that we're hoping for is going to do the 5 things are: number 1, outlaw abortion from conception. Number 2, no exceptions. And then number 3, it will actually criminalize the process. Number 4, it will repeal all statutes implying legalized abortion. And number 5 is to ignore Roe. And pretty much just assert Oklahoma state sovereignty, and pretty much we're not going to murder babies in Oklahoma. We're going to protect babies in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so that's an abolition bill, right?
That is it. Yes, the 5 components. And so the question then is, what can we do about it here in Western Oklahoma? And so there are some exciting things.
The best day of the year for any abolitionist is Abolition Day, and that will be February 9th this year. We're going to meet at the Oklahoma State Capitol, and we're going to rally outside the Capitol on the steps, and then we're going to go inside and actually speak with our legislators. A couple of years ago, there was several hundred people at the Capitol. Last year, there was a few thousand, and so we're hoping for several thousand this year. So this is a very important day for Oklahoma and some anti-abortion legislation. So that would be a day when you take off work, pull the kids out of school, if they're in school, and make sure you get to the Capitol on February 9th. It'll be 9:30 in the morning, and dress warm. It was kind of cold last year, and so we'll dress warm this year. But we're just going to go inside and implore our legislators to support this legislation. Last year they voted it down by almost a unanimous majority. Only 4 senators were willing to support it. This year we're going to implore them not to do that again, and to support this legislation, because it's a piece of righteous legislation. That's number one. See you at the Capitol on February 9th. And number two, we've got kind of a unique situation out here in western Oklahoma. We just have a new House Representative, Anthony Moore, and we've been talking to Anthony for a few months, kind of about this. And Anthony, he's got a big heart, sincere guy, and he does oppose abortion 100% of the time. If you ask him, he'd say he's 100% pro-life, and we're thankful for that. Thankful for a guy who reads his Bible and wants to represent the people of House District 57. And so that's the good news. The bad news is that he's kind of unfamiliar with this legislation, and that's most of us, because it is kind of a new movement.
Yeah.
It takes some time to kind of digest this, and so Anthony he's absolutely on board with ending abortion in our state. However, he's not sure that this piece of legislation represents the will of the people. And so he actually, he would like to see the support for this piece of legislation. And so we told him we'd bring him a bunch of signatures, and he was very willing. It's not a slight at him at all. He's very willing to look at the support for it. And if he thinks that it represents the will of the people, he said he would absolutely support it. And so this is where you come in, western Oklahoma. Actually, House District 57. It's all of Custer County and a few little tidbits on the outskirts. We'll attach a map below so you can kind of see House District 57 if you're not aware. But we've actually got a petition here. Ben, show them that?
Yeah, sure. All right.
And so what we're going to do is we've got a petition here that just pretty much kind of asks Anthony to support what we've just spoken of. And so we need to get this into your hands, and the easiest way to do that is we've attached a link below. You can print this off, and after you put your signature on it, put your wife's signature on it, let her sign it, and then take it to your Sunday school group or your co-workers, anybody in House District 57 that might oppose abortion and want to support this legislation. Just you can be as active with this as you'd like to be. If you just want to sign it yourself, then after you've signed it, put your address on there also. We'll be verifying addresses. But after you fill it out, take a picture of it with your smartphone, and you can email it to wocl2020@gmail.com, and we'll attach that email address below. But that's our Western Oklahoma Christians for Liberty email address, and send that to us, and we'll make sure Anthony sees it. We're desperate to get this into your hands. And so if you're not tech savvy, shoot us your mailing address. We'll mail you one. We all drive all over Custer County, so we could probably drop one off at your house if you wanted us to. Yeah. But we'd be happy to get this into your hands any way we could. That way we can show Anthony that we do want to end abortion in Oklahoma, and we want to do it this way. We want to ignore Roe and criminalize abortion without exception, and do it from conception. And so those are the two big areas where we can really get involved. Honestly, this is a place where Christians should be, chomping at the bit, ready to. Yes. The Book of James tells us that we are to, add works to our faith and evidence our faith by our works. And this is a very might take a little bit of effort, but print this off, fill it out, take a picture of it, send it to us, and we'll be happy to get that into Anthony's hands, and we'll try to save some babies in Oklahoma and really. Further God's kingdom in our neck of the woods. But Ben, you got anything else for him?
Amen. Yeah. Link will be below this video, and so just. And
if you have any other questions, feel free to message us on Facebook. We'd be happy to do presentations or come talk to you about it. Anyway, we go to churches, whatever we need to do to make sure that people know about this and know that this is a real means to end abortion in Oklahoma. What Joseph Silk did. When he introduced that bill back in 2016, that was the first one of its kind in the United States history. It was the first abolition of abortion piece of legislation. There's other states who have done similar things, but they're kind of half measures or trigger bills, and that's another conversation. But this bill right here would actually defy Roe and protect the unborn in Oklahoma.
It is rapidly growing. There'll be at least 8 other states that are going to be introducing similar bills this coming year. So it is pretty exciting stuff. But Oklahoma really has the opportunity to be on the forefront of this and to really make history. Yeah. So
All right. Well, guys, thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to message us. And we'll put all the information below. Click on the link, fill out the petition, and we sure appreciate your support.